The following program is rated T for teen for the use of tools and materials that can be harmful to unsupervised usage. Viewer discretion is advised.
War never changes. After the Great Atomic War, those that survived in underground bunkers emerged years later to a changed world, where scavenging became the new norm, where every day became a struggle to survive, picking through the ruins of the old world in the hopes they might find something, anything to keep them alive just one more day. This new, beautiful, and harsh world they emerged into, plight with danger yet a quiet serenity. But they weren't alone. Much had changed. Mutation, scavengers, a threat upon every horizon. Where it became kill or be killed. Struggling to protect what little you have against those that would take it by force if necessary. Always hunting. But those with the courage to do so could survive. Those with a knack of finding the unfindable. Tenacity. The iron will and true grit to survive against all odds. And this world had already been pillaged twice over. Some might get lucky and find remnants of food, supplies. More often than not, these hunts, they would come up empty. But still, they persevere. They move on. This is our brave new world. This is Fallout.
Hello everyone, Mr. Waugh here from Mr. Waugh Media, and yes, that is my actual name, and today, a passion project that's taken 2 months to pull off, the Fallout video. I'm a huge fan of this franchise. I've been playing it since I was a teenager, so I wanted to do it right. And this is actually the second draft. The first one, I just didn't feel comfortable with. Second season of our show, we wanted it to be a step up, and so I only want to give you the best quality. But enough about that. Let's jump into this. I've been making a base here. It's 12 inches long by 8 inches wide and relatively straightforward. This is pretty much going to be identical to all the other builds that I've made. If you find that the styrofoam is a little too weak, you might want to reinforce it with a bit of cardboard underneath, but that is up to you, since there will be a pretty solid structure on the top. Now it's time to start working on the actual walls. For mine, I want it to be a 2-story motel, so I've decided to make it 5 inches tall by 8 inches long. So I'll cut out 2 panels that will mirror each other for the front and the back, respectively, and then we'll work on the sides. Alright, it's now time to work on the walls. Once again, the height is going to be 5 inches, but for the width itself, for this one, I want to make it 4 inches wide. Once again, I will make the precise cuts on both sides and make myself 2 panels. Like so. Next up, we're going to start mapping out where the second story begins and where I want the windows to be placed. Now, since this is a 5-inch tall building, obviously it's going to fall at the 2.5 mark for the second floor. Now, this is good to mark off so I have the interior mapped, as well as the beams for the outside when I get to that step. As for the windows themselves, that's kind of a dealer's choice decision. You might want to have a double bay kind of windows or something a little bit more grand. For myself, I decided I just want something very simple on the two sides, about 1 inch by 1 inch for the windows. And as for the back of the building, there's going to be one window per room since this will be a 4-room motel. As you can see here, I've been very precise with my measurements because I want to make it as clean as possible. I'm going to pull up the ruler here and just do a quick measurements. The windows are 1 inch in from the sides, and they're about 3 inches up. Here, I'm just going to be very precise about this. It is exactly 3.5. I stand corrected there. Now I'm going to go in with a very sharp blade and cut those out. If there is a bit of debris, don't worry about it too much. You can just go in with a sharp knife afterwards and sort of clean it up. But for my build, I actually have some debris and shards of glass I'm going to have in there, so it won't be too bad. And there you go. That's the back panel. I'm going to do pretty much the exact same thing on the side panel here. Once again, it's about 3.5 inches up. And this one, again, pulling out the ruler here, it is about 1.25 from both sides. It'll rest in the middle there. And once again, doing my measurements here. Man, look at me. I'm just so precise here. After slapping myself on the back multiple times in self-celebration, it's time to actually begin assembling this behemoth. So let's use the hot glue gun to mount the side panel to the back panel here. Look at that. Amazing. Beautiful. Breathtaking. Oh, wait. Gotta reload the gun. And spew some hot goo all over the shaft here and mount the side wall firmly into place. Now, don't look at me like that. You try editing for 10 hours straight and improvising fresh dialogue every time. It's not as easy as it looks. But no time for that. We gotta start shoving this thing in there. It's black, it's 8 inches long and 4 inches wide. It's the floor, you degenerates, the floor! Hi, Mom. Are you proud of me? God. This is why I need Mia here. Although, to be fair, she comes up with some pretty twisted stuff, too. Most of her lines are actually improvised, so anything you heard in the farm episode, yeah, that's 100% her. Alright, we're going to put the front cover on here. Just use the glue and go from there. I got nothing. Alright, now we could leave the upstairs completely open. In fact, one of my buildings actually does look like that. But for this one, because it is a motel, I wanted there to be multiple rooms. So I'm making a little divider piece here. So it's going to be 4 inches long and about, I'd say just a hair under 2.5. And that should fit in there nice and snug. I'm just going to mark out the exact middle of the room and place it in like so. Next up, we're going to have to do a bit of harvesting. You're going to take some thin cardboard sheets, or some cereal box if you got some on hand, and cut long, narrow strips to be used on the exterior of the building. We're going to need a lot of this, so basically I'm showing you here on camera, and behind the scenes, I'm actually going to have Mia doing some harvesting. She actually contributes quite a bit to the behind the scenes stuff that doesn't really make it onto film, because let's face it, we need a lot. Yeah, we need a lot. And it wasn't until about halfway through filming we realized that there was a couple problems with these strips. For one, they were getting wavy. She wasn't holding the cardboard down in place firmly enough, so every time she moved her hand, the cardboard would get jostled around, sending it into different directions. The other problem, the blade wasn't as sharp as it could have been. So we replaced the blade and I showed her how to hold it down firmly in place with strong hands. And after that point, it started going out a lot smoother. And with that obstacle out of the way, we could finally get back to the harvesting. By this point, we had about 2 or 3 solid pieces in the bag, so I just let her know we needed probably about 20 more. After watching poor Mia have a nuclear meltdown in the living room, it's time to start working on the exterior. For this one, we're going to use these hard-earned strips and start mounting them along each of the edges. Thus becomes sort of a dealer's choice decision, how complicated you want it to be. For myself, I'm probably just going to mount them on the edge of the building, along each of them, one along the very middle to sort of show where the second story begins, and I might put a couple support beams here and there. I'm not making this overly complicated. It's supposed to be a sort of a run-down, rugged-looking building, but you will see later on in the video some other pieces that I build, and I do a little bit more detail work. But again, it is totally dealer's choice. I'm just going to keep banging away at this thing, and you'll sort of see the direction I'm taking it. While I'm at it, I'm going to start working on the front deck for the second story. This piece is going to be 7 inches long by 2 inches wide, and when I mount it to the front, it's going to sit between the two doors. Now, you'll notice that in the front there, I do have a central pillar that only goes about halfway done. I wanted to mount this one down before I move on to get the rest of the detail work. Speaking of, I'm going to take a couple strips, and I'm going to have them mounted on the front here just to keep the whole thing consistent, and then I'll have one underneath it as well just to finalize it. Nothing too exciting here. I'm just going to keep working and do a bit of a time lapse. As you can see here, I also did some along the top, and now we're going to do some trim to go along with that, just to really give it a consistent look. As I stated earlier, this is completely dealer's choice how much detail you want to put into this. I think this gives it a nice look, and overall, it's going to tie this building along with the other ones that I've done together in a consistent, uniform manner. It's now time to start working on the windows themselves. For this one, we're just going to cut a strip and mount it on the bottom there. I've sometimes used the wood to give it a nice rustic look, but for this one, since it is more of an industrial building, I want to keep it that grounded look. So for this one, it's about 1 inch in length. Just mount it down there with a hot glue gun and put it into each of the windows that is open. Like so. There you go. With that out of the way, we're now going to start working on the flooring. So this is going to be the same thing for the front deck part and for the roof. This is just some generic screen door. I bought this in a roll, I think for about $20, and I still haven't used half of it yet on all these projects. We're going to glue that firmly down and then go from there. Now it's time to start basing this behemoth. This is the same technique as always. Lay down your white glue, sprinkle some sands, call it a day. While I'm at it though, I've noticed I want a couple more pieces here. So I'm going to bolt these along the midsection. I honestly don't know why I did it in this order. I think I was waiting for something to dry, or we got interrupted for dinner or something like that. I'm not too sure, but whatever the reason is, I'm going to go in and do the central pillar. Because I'm a genius. Don't you know? Yeah, I actually really like how this is starting to come together. We're now going to start working on the doors. And this is a bit of a cheat for me because these are little pieces that I found in my toolbox. They're the dividers that keeps all the bits separated. And they're exactly 1 inch by 2 inches tall and look like a perfect industrial door. Now, if you don't have something like this laying around, you could always just cut them out of some cardboard or any other little bits you might have. For me, this was just a nice uniform look and, saved me a lot of time. Look at that. Nice and even. Speaking of accessories, I got some copper pipe from the hardware store, and I have this little elbow piece that I'm going to mount to the bottom here. Nothing really practical about it, it just looks kind of cool. Next up, I'm going to work on the windows downstairs. These are pre-cut pieces of wood that are used from foreground for basings. I mount them 1 inch off the ground, and you'll notice they run directly underneath the upstairs windows. Or as close as I can get them anyways. Next up, I had this funky little piece from Mantic Games, some sort of a power generator. I don't know exactly what it's there for. Again, it just looks kind of cool. While I'm at it, I'm going to take some more of those strips and mount them to the roof piece that I was working on previously. To be completely honest, I'm not sure why I'm doing it in this order. I think it's just the way we were filming. We sort of do one piece, we jump to another. I mean, it's all coming together. It's just kind of funky for me in the editing process because I'm like, was that something I did around the beginning? Oh, guess not. Oh well. It is what it is, and it's all coming together. Insert filler dialogue here. But overall, I really do like this piece. I think it's really coming together. Next up, we're going to work on the railing on the front piece. For this, we're going to use some generic chicken wire. And this is going to be 3 chicken wire tall and 4 inches long. I know, strange unit measurements, but work with me here. What we're going to do is bend it in an L shape. Actually, a little bit deeper, because you want it to almost be like a J, so that these bottom prongs are going to dig into the styrofoam and make it that much more of a strong anchoring. Now, you're going to have to use either the super glue or some hot glue. The white glue is just not going to cut it here for bonding. And you could run this along the entire length of the deck if you wanted, but for me, I wanted to make mine a little more thematic. You'll notice some of it's heavily bent and damaged. It gives you the impression that something either got thrown through this or something large barreled through the barrier. Overall, I like this kind of look. And I also ran out of chicken wire, so that's my other excuse. We're going to use some more chicken wire. That's going to be 3 chicken wire wide and 5 inches tall. And we're going to cut out the pieces on the side here so it'll be like a U shape. And this is going to be an escape ladder on the back. I know it's a little bit tricky to see what I'm doing here. I'll try to give you a better view in a minute here. You're going to bend all of these little legs in, almost like a centipede, and you're going to mount it on the back of the building. Give me 1 sec here. Bear with me. And there we go. There. You can sort of see what I've done. And we're going to mount that either with the hot glue gun, the super glue, whatever I have on hand that's going to give maximum bonding. Like so. For the next part, I've gathered a couple pieces for my bits box that came from Mantic. These seem to be some sort of a hard piping or maybe some sort of a bracing of some sort. Not entirely sure, but I thought it looked kind of cool, so I glued 2 of them together, and now I'm going to mount them to the wall itself. This could be some sort of a drainage pipe, perhaps, or, I don't know, just some random accessory that just makes the exterior look a little bit more interesting. I'm going to glue it on with some super glue, like so. Next up, we're going to work on our window frames. For this one, I hope you have some leftover strips, because let's face it, we go through a lot of them during this build. Now, this is relatively straightforward. There's nothing exciting here. You just put 1 on the top, 2 on the sides, and, well, you've got a frame. Thrilling. But this part's actually kind of interesting. We're going to take a blister pack here, this one's from Reaper, and we're going to cut out a panel of glass. And this is where the creativity really comes into play and how crazy you want the detail work to be. Now, I've done a couple different panels where one of them maybe is half shattered, or one is relatively intact, but there might be a couple broken pieces in the bottom corner. Or I've taken a very fine knife and carved tiny little spider webs in it where maybe an impact damage has taken place, and the glass is starting to fragment. Alternatively, I've also taken a tiny drill bit and poked tiny holes in it, and done a little bit more of that spider webbing around the edge to show the impact damage. Now for this one, you want to use your hot glue gun to mount it in place. I find the other glues, they're going to leave some sort of a glossy residue behind it, and it fogs the window up a bit. If you like that, go for it, but for mine, I'm going to try to keep it as clean as I can. Now, I don't just want the broken glass. I've decided I'm going to have a window panel that's sort of hanging on the hinges. This is a leftover piece from the Necromunda video. It's just a 1 inch by 1 inch wavy cardboard piece. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier. This one is the bullet damage window. So I took the tiny drill, made the holes where the bullet went through, and took the tiny blade to make the cracks. This one is shattered panel. This one's got the little fragments on the windowsill, it's on the interior floor as well, and the ground outside. Now downstairs is relatively straightforward. It's just some coffee stir sticks to board up the windows, and that's about it. Nothing exciting. Alright, while the main building dries, we're going to work on some barricades for the outside. Now, these are going to be relatively uniform. You can use them in most settings, depending on what materials you use and what you might happen to have lying in your bits box. For the main part, it's going to be 1 inch wide by 5 inches long for both the base and for the main barricade. Now, obviously, you could go a lot longer. You can make the barricade a little bit taller. I'm just trying to keep mine a little bit uniform so I can just lay them all out. Obviously here I'm rounding out the edges for the base, relatively straightforward. And once I'm satisfied with my measurements, I'm just going to mount the main barricade to the base itself. Like so. And we're done. Okay, maybe not. For this one, I'm going to go a little bit more modern age and sci-fi, so I've glued a barrel to the side of this one, and I'm going to start mounting some metal sheets down. So this is, again, the 1x1 wavy cardboard. I used a lot of that in my Necromunda videos. I really love this stuff. And I'm just going to mount it in the middle here of the barricade. Once I have that out of the way, I'm going to move on to my next material, and this is just going to be some coffee stir sticks. I'm going to break them down so it maybe looks like a pallet was pushed against the wall, or they've taken broken doors and windows and are leaning against this barricade. So I'm going to, glue them sideways here. I'll have one big piece that'll sort of go across the entire thing to hold it together. Or maybe I'll put one on each side and make it look like a picket fence that just got thrown against this barricade. I mean, let's face it, in most tabletop gaming, even a wooden fence can apparently stop laser fire. I don't know what kind of wood they're using in this, but my god, it's indestructible. Yeah, that should stop a rocket launcher, right? And if that doesn't, this next part surely will, because we're going to use some screen door. That's right, we're going to cut it to fill the remaining hole here, and once I'm satisfied with my cut, I'm going to glue it into place with some white glue. Because nothing says rocket launcher proof like a screen door does. Yeah, my troops are going to be safe. Come at me, bro. Once that's out of the way, we're going to start working on the base. We're going to just smear some white glue everywhere and then sprinkle some sand on it. Like so. There we go. Barricade done. Hey everyone, Mr. Waugh here with a quick update to avoid any confusion. Yes, this is the end of Part 1. Turns out during editing, this is the largest project we've ever worked on, clocking in at 35 minutes. So, to make it more digestible, we decided to chop it into 2 parts. Part 1, what you just watched, is the building tutorial, and Part 2 is going to be the painting segment. So we hope you stick around for that one. We'll launch it just after this one, and hope you've been enjoying it so far. Now to switch gears a little bit here, Mia's been telling me I haven't been pushing music enough on this channel. And she's right, that's what this channel was originally built for. Now every song that you hear in these are produced by myself, a close group of friends, so if you've been enjoying it so far, check us out over on Bandcamp and show some love.